Finally, after all these years, we are only a handful of days away from the long-anticipated Western release of Chaos Head Noah, launching on the Nintendo Switch in a double pack alongside the port of Chaos Child. We are quite sure a few of you are eagerly awaiting to get your hands on it, but we thought that perhaps not everyone is aware of the importance of this release, so we've decided to make this video to make things as clear as possible as to why you should definitely be looking forward to this legendary visual novel, as well as mention a few things you might need to keep in mind when picking it up. This video was written by the legendary Marion. Please go follow him on Twitter with the links in the description. And of course, if you want to buy this game physically on the Nintendo Switch, then check the links in the description. So let's start with the basics. The Science Adventure series is a critically acclaimed and extremely popular series of sci-fi mystery visual novels, and Chaos Head is where it all started. The main appeal of this series is how it manages to skillfully mix actual science concepts while delivering deeply engaging mystery-filled stories with a truly captivating lore surrounding them. Perhaps the best known title out of them has to be Steins Gate, which is often considered one of the greatest visual novels ever made. Most of the games themselves are completely isolated stories with different casts of characters, but they're often narratively connected between each other, so it's generally advised to play them in order. Needless to say, if you want to get into this much-loved series, Chaos Head Noah is the best place to do so. That being said, Chaos Head Noah is anything but like the rest of the games in the series, and that's including Chaos Child. If we were to describe it, the best way would be calling it the opposite of a murder mystery. Probably a slightly ambiguous definition, but try to think of it this way. If the usual murder mystery is about the protagonist with the role of a detective trying to actively solve a series of murders by chasing the true culprit, Chaos Head Noah is instead a series of murders that are chasing the protagonist himself. It's a story with a heavy focus on paranoia and delusions as its main themes, which at times feels closer to horror rather than a mystery. The game's atmosphere also feels distinctly different. Just like the other games in the series, Chaos Head is also set in modern Japan, but this one delves deep into urban fantasy territory. This setting is used wonderfully to convey a sense of oppression. At times the atmosphere is so thick you could almost cut it with a knife. One thing you really need to keep in mind when picking up Chaos Head Noah though, is that the protagonist is a terrible, disgusting piece of human garbage, but that's what makes him so captivating. Anti-hero protagonists aren't anything new for the medium, but when done right, they can be incredibly memorable. What separates a good anti-hero protagonist from just a dislikable prick is the treatment they receive from the story itself. For example, if such a protagonist, after heartlessly acting throughout the game, suddenly receives a completely undeserved redemption arc, there's unavoidably going to be a clear dissonance between how you, the reader, and the game itself perceive him. In this regard, Chaos Head Noah simply manages to do it flawlessly. It takes a really sharp and often cynical approach to all of its characters, but especially towards the protagonist, which is what, in my opinion, makes him the best protagonist in the entire science adventure series. If you're wondering what the Noah in the title of this game means, it simply means that this is an upgraded version of the original Chaos Head. It includes new content such as a more in-depth common route, more CGs, and routes for each heroine, some of which brought some really interesting lore revelations. In other words, this is the definitive version of the game, which pretty much made the original obsolete. The improvements brought by the Switch version are mostly slight visual upgrades to make the game run at a higher resolution. You might have heard that this game is actually censored, which unfortunately is true. Basically, the original Xbox 360 release was a lot more gruesome during certain scenes, but it was then slightly toned down when it was ported to the PSP and PS3 in order to receive a 0D rating. This Switch version is based on those ports and not the original release. As to what was changed, the biggest casualties were a couple of endings, in particular the bad ending, whose most brutal scenes were removed from the game. In its current state, the story does still allude to those events, so it's not like the plot stops making sense or anything, but it's simply not as explicit about it. There were also a couple of lines from the common route that were cut, but those were kind of insignificant. Although truth be told, these changes are only slightly noticeable if you are aware of them or someone has told you about them, so, well, sorry about that. Another thing to keep an eye on is the quality of the translation itself. This was a point of contention back when Robotics Notes came to the West, since that translation had a few rough edges here and there. The main issues that the translation had were some mistranslated grammar, untranslated CGs, as well as some lore inconsistencies, among other things, which gave the feeling that the translation was rushed out of the window. Right now, it's hard to know how this one will turn out, since these are the type of matters that come to light once people have had enough time with the game to properly analyze it. But judging from some of the press release materials, we can discern a couple of things. For example, the translation changed words such as Oni to simply brother. This, of course, isn't a mistranslation or anything, but if you are the type of person who prefers your translations to have those Japanese words intact, this translation might not be to your liking. Fortunately, a fan translation group called Committee of Zero have been working on a full translation for the game for a while and are planning to make their own translation patch. They previously released a patch for the Steam version of Robotics Notes to fix those previously mentioned issues. But if your main platform of choice is the Nintendo Switch, the planned Chaos Head Noah patch probably won't be available for you. That being said, some found the Robotics Notes translations to be just fine, so your mileage may vary. And speaking of platforms, if you aren't up to date with Steam's curation shenanigans, a month or so ago, Chaos Head Noah appeared on the list of games that have been rejected from their storefront. This baffled pretty much everyone in the community, considering that the game doesn't have any sort of explicit adult content, not to mention that all the other science adventure games made it to Steam just fine. Spike Chunsoft, however, has recently stated that instead of complying with the changes Steam were demanding, they are instead looking into releasing it on other storefronts, although they haven't specified which one in particular. That being said, we fear what this may mean for future visual novel developers trying to get their games on that storefront. We've already seen a couple of controversies, with titles such as Cyanotype Daydream releasing the game heavily censored to avoid being rejected. But if a title as big as Chaos Head is receiving the cursed ban hammer, these sorts of incidents might only continue to happen in the future. And finally, the last thing you need to know is that, if you couldn't already tell, the game is seriously good. Visual novels is a genre that unfortunately can often fall into the same stale tropes, since as long as the characters are likable enough, they will be enjoyable. But every once in a while, there are those games that challenge the medium to become something greater, and Chaos Head Noah comfortably falls into that category. It's a game overflowing with ambitiousness and personality, with a strong, memorable story to tell. Personally, if you ask me which one is more fun, Steins Gate or Chaos Head Noah, I would probably tell you Steins Gate. But if I were to say which one, in my opinion, is the better, more interesting one, my answer would immediately and resolutely change to Chaos Head in an instant. It's certainly not for everyone, but if you want to see a title that makes proper use of the medium to its fullest, we simply cannot recommend enough that you give Chaos Head Noah a shot. And so you should. Check the links in the description if you want to purchase a physical copy. Thanks ever so much to Miguel Marion for writing this nice little video for you guys. Are you going to pick it up? Please do let us know in the comments. In the meantime, subscribe, hit that bell button, and also check out some of our other content.